Hello, my name is John Hench, and I will be presenting my research topic, which is social media and depression. So my research question is, how has increased social media usage in the past decade led to a rise in depression and depressive-like symptoms such as stress, fatigue, and loneliness? So why did I choose this as my research question? Well, social media has a huge influence upon our lives. Nearly everyone that you know probably has a social media app like Instagram or Snapchat. And 264 million people worldwide suffer from depression. That is a lot of people. It's almost the entire population of the US. And specifically in the last year, COVID-19 has required more people to work from home, which means more social media use. Not only talking about social media usage in the terms of Instagram and Snapchat, but also in Zoom, which people don't really recognize as social media, but it is just as potent as the other forms like Instagram and Snapchat. So my first source is The Dark Side of Social Media, The Psychological, Managerial, and Societal Perspectives by Pavika Sheldon. Some major claims in this book are that longer browsing times can lead to a higher chance of developing depressive symptoms, and the reason for this is because the more you browse on Instagram or Snapchat, the more you consume the information about other people, and those apps like Instagram and Snapchat are notorious for having standards and things that we're supposed to live up to, but might not always be like that in reality, like the slim, fit, tan body. And comparing yourselves to those are very bad for your mental health, because sometimes we can't possibly reach those goals, and we just can't do that. And comparing is one of the worst ways that can lead to depression, because you don't have faith in yourself. Another major claim is that the bright light emitted from screens stimulates the brain, which makes it harder to fall asleep. And the reasoning behind this is because the bright light from your screen can act as like it's daytime, and since your brain is receiving this stimulation, it would be harder to fall asleep, because if your brain is perceiving the world around you right now as the middle of the day. So your brain is sending these signals: don't fall asleep, don't fall asleep. There's obviously something going on that's preventing you from falling asleep, and it's that bright light. And especially within the last 20 years, suicide rates have increased dramatically. And social media is definitely at fault for that, because a lot of people can slip into a depression from it. And rumination, which is a deep thought about something, can cause the onset of depression. And kind of like how I was saying before, with the longer browsing times and how we compare ourselves to each other, that's kind of rumination. Comparing yourself to something that you are not is rumination, and that's really bad for your mental health. How does this relate to depression? Well, depression is a result of many emotions or feelings, such as loneliness, stress, and fatigue. And it also, these stimulations can result in a lack of body care, such as little sleep, physical activity, which also can lead to depression. And physical inactivity is another thing that is really important when it comes to how people fall into depression, because physical activity stimulates the brain and the body, and it keeps your brain healthy. Without physical inactivity, such as like laying on the couch looking at Instagram, you may fall into depression faster. And depression at its worst can lead to attempted suicide and suicide at the very worst, which, like I was saying earlier, suicide rates have gone up, and it's most likely due to the fact that depression rates have also risen. So some quotes from Pavika Sheldon's book: 8% of people who spent 5 hours or more on social media had at least one suicide risk factor. A longitudinal research has revealed that rumination predicts the onset of depression, and having strangers as friends on social media can also contribute to greater depressive symptoms, because these strangers are not actually real friends that you know in real life. So you may become it may lead to isolation. So my second source is A Neurophysiological Exploration of Zoom Fatigue by Jenna Lee. So some major claims from this article are that active social connection stimulates neurological pathways. Zoom is not capable of that. And this article focuses on Zoom fatigue, which is a more recent phenomenon, as because of COVID-19 we have shifted to using online tools like Zoom, because we can't get in person because, nobody wants to catch COVID-19. And the reason why Zoom is not capable of that is because, if you think about it on a realistic level, you can't have a realistic conversation with somebody in real life like you can over the computer. You can't maintain eye contact. You can't really express body language. These are important things that we take for granted when we're in real life because we just do it automatically. We don't really realize it, but over the computer, you realize that that medium is not available. Like I was saying, some lack of social cues like eye contact and body language create a more awkward environment, and that's totally true because these things that we would normally have in a real life conversation cannot be held in an artificial conversation over Zoom. And also, some other annoyances like faulty internet connections, slow computers, audio issues can contribute to a more stressful experience. For example, when you're trying to talk to somebody and your microphone keeps cutting out, or there's an issue, obviously that's really annoying and it can be stressful because sometimes you may need to get some information across, but you can't actually do it. So it leads to more time wasted, which can lead to a more stressful experience. So how does this relate to depression? Well, working from home creates a more sedentary lifestyle, and a sedentary lifestyle means you're not getting as much physical activity. And really the biggest reason for this is because you're not moving around a whole lot as if you were going to work in real life. But because you're not getting out of your house to go to work, you're not as prone to doing some physical activity as you normally would be. So because of this sedentary lifestyle, people are not getting physical activity, which is a common theme that can lead to depression. And a lack of real-life interpersonal communication can cause loneliness, which is true. You're not having that real communication like you would on a real-life level when you're on Zoom. It's not possible to create that over that medium. And also your home environment may not be suitable for work. Like for example, if you have a small house and you have kids at home, it can be hard to concentrate on your work when you have a lot of other things going on, versus in a professional work environment, you don't have to deal with that. So of course, this leads to more stress, which can lead to depression. Some quotes from this article. Zoom fatigue describes the tiredness, worry, or burnout associated with overusing virtual platforms of communication. So that's the definition of Zoom fatigue. Notably, physical activity is associated with about a 40% reduced risk of fatigue, but because of Zoom promoting physical inactivity, this can lead to higher depression rates. And the millisecond delays in virtual verbal responses negatively affect our interpersonal perceptions. This is why I was talking about those audio delays. It can be hard to communicate with somebody when we're having technical issues, but in real life we wouldn't have technical issues because we'd be speaking to each other in person. And some synthesis between these two sources. So common apps like Instagram and Snapchat can promote depressive-like symptoms. Obviously, I covered that with my first article, or book, but also Zoom is just as capable as those apps because of the other depressive symptoms it may exhibit. Cyberbullying and stuff like that may not be prominent on Zoom versus like Instagram and Snapchat, but there are other harmful ways such as physical inactivity and stress that can lead to depression. So even though the two apps are very different, they still fall under social media, and they can still lead to depression. And overusage applies in both scenarios, which can lead to depression. Overusage of Zoom can lead to high stress because you're performing a lot of work, and overusage of Instagram and Snapchat can lead to depressive symptoms because you're developing bad habits, not getting enough sleep, that kind of stuff. And in my conclusion, so depressive symptoms primarily result from the overusage of social media, which is true because using a little bit of social media is not going to hurt you a whole lot, but it's the overusage that can make it a problem. Depression can affect everyone regardless of the environment, so workplace or just leisurely time, the workplace environment like Zoom, leisurely time like Instagram and Snapchat, and symptoms such as loneliness, physical inactivity, and lack of sleep are common themes that can lead to depression.